All right, everybody, good morning. Thanks for joining me today for our third webinar in this series. I'm glad to see people here ready to go, nice and early. Today, we're going to continue our journey talking about mobile devices to support the inclusive classroom. And I'll give you a little sense of what today will bring as we go through. Be prepared to participate today, because I have a couple sections built in that I'm going to look for some feedback from you guys. So hopefully you came ready to type away in the chat window there, and we'll make sure that your information gets shared with the group. I will share it out with everybody else. And so off we go on our little discussion here. I'm glad you're back. So we're in week 3, which is talking about even more apps, software, and the cloud. These two webinars, last week and this week, tend to be the fun ones. And it's kind of interesting because in the first week, I talked about the ideas of making sure we don't get kind of enamored with the tools too much. But ultimately, these are the powerful sessions in a sense that these are the ways we're going to make these mobile devices powerful for us. So the tools, while it's important not to get completely overwhelmed and have the desire to install every single app you will come across into a device, the apps and the tools still are important. I mean, they are the way we customize the way work gets done for our students. They are important, and they are worth spending the 2 different weeks on. And what we'll find even today. I know it for a fact. As I looked through it, even as I was just sitting here waiting to start, I thought of one other thing I could have added in, and I said, well, you know what, I'm sure I'll think of 10 more as we're talking. But I think just giving you a sense of the broader scope of some examples that are out there will be really nice for that. As we talked about last week, and I'll remind you again this week, in addition to our webinars, don't forget that on the CTD website is an entire section under tools that gives us an example to communicate through forums, as well as looking at the other activities that are associated with this. So I'll give you a sense as we move through today what other activities have been posted up there. And I haven't seen any activity in there yet, and I'm sending my plea your way. Please take some time, go through the activities, participate in the forums a little bit. Let's get some sharing going, because I think that's the way that we'll be able to take this information and really extend it out even further. You know, these hours that we're together are good. They're powerful because it gets a chance for some good information sharing. But I think what really provides the depth to the learning will be all of the activities and working on them together and sharing ideas back and forth. I'm a big believer of the sharing and learning from each other. I believe I said it in the first week. If I didn't, I should have. Not one of us can know everything. So we all have something that we can share, and we all have something we can learn. Another person. I've tried to give you a scope of activities that address different kinds of learners. So if you're more of a hands-on and you want to try things, there's options there. If you want to do some research or look at things and read things and review other pieces of information, that's there as well. So I'm trying to give you as many options. If you're a creative person, there's a couple choices there to make your own videos with different things. So I definitely encourage you. Get in there, dive in, play a little bit, explore, and deepen your learning from what we've talked about. All right, that's it for now. I promise. I might hit that again at some point, so be prepared. But right now, I think I've driven that home enough. We'll jump on from there. So here we are back to our chart that I keep bringing up every time we get together. And so what's our plan? So here we are. We're in week 3 of this 4-week experience. So today, even more apps, software, and the cloud. This will be more of the examples of them in action. We'll talk about how you could use these in a classroom. We'll share some examples through a video. I have some picture examples of different things. So hopefully you'll walk away today with really kind of concrete examples and strategies of how to use some of these tools. I think that sometimes becomes difficult, is that we get these ideas and we have a sense of what we're going to do, and then if we're not quite sure how that's going to look in practice, it's hard sometimes for us to figure that out. So as we go through, I'll remind you, at any point, if you have questions, drop them in the chat window. I'll watch that as we go through. I try to be good about paying attention to that window, so hopefully I'll catch them as you post them up there. And like I said, there's going to be moments in there where I will ask for your feedback about things, and that's your opportunity to dive in there and type away frantically as we go through. So with that, we'll jump in. I'm trying to incorporate pictures in that make me think of summer. So as we get close to summertime, I'm trying to drop these in to make me smile as we go through. So that's the plans here. So we'll dive in. Remember about the chat window. I reminded you that already. Here's what we're going to look at today. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to go a little deeper into the idea of apps and using them and kind of some creative ways we can think about using them. And then we're going to spend probably, if I take a guess at the timing of this, probably about half of our time together this morning doing an app smackdown, but doing it virtually. So typically, if you've ever gone to a technology conference, whether it's assistive technology or even just regular ed tech conference, a lot of times what they'll have in those conferences is what's called an app smackdown, where basically anybody in the audience gets an opportunity to come up. They have 2 minutes, usually it's 2 minutes, sometimes they adjust the time, but about 2 minutes to share a tool, tell us the name of the tool, where it works, does it work on, well, what kinds of devices does it work on? Does it work on an iPad, does it work on an Android, is it a web-based tool, whatever it might be. So where it works, what it is, and how you use it. And I think that's the part that makes those really powerful when we think about the app smackdown. It's great to get the names of a bunch of things, but it's more valuable to understand how people are using that tool in their situation. And then we can start trying to build our toolkit of strategies of how we're going to use tools like that. And in fact, when we get to that part later on in the presentation, you'll have, I have some slides in there of things that I like to show because I think they're just really powerful tools that we could all use for different end results with our students. But last night on Twitter, as part of the AT chat that happens on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern, if you're around on Twitter, I asked the group to share with me their own suggestions for virtual app smackdown. And so some people shared their ideas, and so I incorporated those in a little bit to give us a sense of what other people use. And you know, when you say to people, what's your favorite tool that you like to use with your students, this is what came back from that, from some of the people on AT chat. So it's kind of woven those through the second half of the presentation today. So we'll get to those, we'll look at those in a little bit. We'll give a little bit more foundational information first before we dive into the tools again, because I think that is important to give a little bit more, kind of build on the things we spoke about last week. One of the things we spoke about last week was the idea of looking at apps in a structured way to make sure they are building those higher level skills or helping our students build those higher level skills that we're looking for. And so thinking about ways to have these apps, thinking about them in that creative way, and I think it'll make more sense if I go to the next slide. This was Kathy Schrock's revised Bloom taxonomy that we talked about last week, the idea of thinking about how these apps on mobile devices lead to higher level thinking, problem solving, those kinds of strategies that we want our students to use. And what's interesting is I pulled this off of Kathy's website, and it was something that was put together by a lady named Sylvia Rosenthal Tolosano. And she talked about the idea of, she looked at Kathy's framework from the last slide, the picture with the gears, and she said, okay, if those are the skills I want to see my students develop, from remembering up to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So those are those higher level processes that we're looking to instill in our students. She then applied this to the apps that she uses and started to look at where do those apps fit. And I give this to you not just to mimic what Sylvia came up with, but instead to think about the idea of how you could put your apps that you have access to into the same kind of hierarchy, and start to get a sense of where are your apps falling in this continuum. Where do you need to bring in more tools? Where do you have enough tools and maybe you're not using them the best way you could be? It's almost like, and I thought of this when I saw her graphic here, and I started thinking about it. It's almost a self-evaluation tool in a sense, in that I can now go through either my device or the list of apps that I have access to on whatever devices I'm using. It doesn't matter. I think mostly for this instance in this slide, she's talking about iPad apps, but even as you look at them and some of the choices that are there, they have alternates in the other universes. Skype is listed under evaluating near the top. Skype works on anything. I can work that on my computer. I can work that on my phone, whether it's an iOS phone or an Android phone. I can work it on an Android tablet. It doesn't matter. So I think some of these tools you'll find will cut across the different platforms. Some of them will be very specific to the iPad in this example. And so I think it's kind of interesting when we think about the tools we have and how they apply into the bigger scheme of things. I really like this idea of this way of looking at it and thinking about, in any one of these areas, what are the tools I have available on any platform I use for my students to perform these kinds of tasks? And so this gives me a really nice sense, and I'm just starting bringing this into one of the classrooms I'm working in, where the teacher is starting to have a lot of different devices in the room. So it's a bring your own device school. Everybody brings their own thing, whatever it might be. And the teacher I'm working with is trying to come up with a list that she could post on the wall in the classroom to remind the students, if this is the kind of task that we're looking to do, here's the tools that you should look for, regardless on what platform you are. And she's thinking about, how do I color code it and do all this other stuff. So she's trying to figure that out now, and we're working on that. But it's an interesting idea in the idea of creating for yourself basically a roadmap to help understand how you might move students through one of these activities and give some support. And so when I show some of the things later, think about where those apps and tools that I show you might fall in this continuum. And they might fall in multiple spots too. I think that's an important thing to remember, is that something could fall into 2 different places, and that's okay. And again, it's that idea of, we don't need to have 700 apps in order to be successful. Maybe we only need 7. And so thinking about those 7 and how they cut across the areas that our students are working in becomes really important. And so I leave that out there to you. And again, that comes from Kathy Schrock's website. which we talked about last time, and I believe the link is up in one of the activities from last week. Hint, hint, if you go and look in the activities. And Jackie commented in our chat room, and I think, Jackie, you're right. It does take away from the platform, this kind of idea, looking at this bigger, broader sense, brings the focus back to the use, and I think you're exactly right in saying that it takes it away from, oh, I must have an iPad, I must have this, I must have that. It brings the app back down to what are its features? How are you going to use it? And I think that becomes really important to think about, is what are the features? I'm constantly saying to people, what are the features? Oh, you like this or you like that? That's great. Why? What are the features that make you like that? And it's trying to get people to have a bit of a mind shift to not get wrapped up in what something is called, but instead, what does it do? And Patty, I think you're right. Patty commented that Kathy has the same taxonomy for different devices. I mean, in reality, Kathy's taxonomy from that page isn't any device taxonomy. It doesn't matter. Kathy does a lot with iOS devices, but it does go broader than that. I always tell people, it doesn't matter that this says iPads on it. It doesn't matter. Think about it in the broader sense. The platform, as we learned last week and the week before, the platform is starting to not matter nearly as much. The platform is becoming irrelevant. And I think if you ask me what's my thought of the next 5 years of mobile devices, what is that going to look like? Well, first of all, I'd say I really ultimately have no idea. But I think what we'll see, because we're seeing it already, is a blurring of these platforms to where it will not matter about what you use because the tools will be available anywhere you go. Think about it right now. On your, whatever kind of phone you have, and I always go to phone because it's the one thing everybody seems to have is a smartphone when we start talking. So you have a smartphone. I don't care if you have an Android phone in any of its 50 different varieties an Android phone comes in, or an iOS phone, an iPhone. It doesn't matter. All of us can complete tasks in Google Drive on any device we have. And I think that's the one I always point people to. It doesn't matter. If you're a Google Drive user and you use Gmail, you can load that into any device. It looks exactly the same, and it will give you access to it. It is irrelevant what you're using. I think it's really important to remind people that. Don't get so hung up on that. We talked about, and again, I'm giving you the bigger frameworks now. The idea of UDL, we talked about that last week. Again, sometimes I feel like I just like to drive these points home. So I wanted to put it up here again to remind us about the idea of thinking about everything we do with apps and mobile devices. Fits very nicely into the UDL framework because it reminds us to provide multiple means for our students. And that's what we're doing with these mobile devices, is we're giving options for our students to remain engaged in the activity, to pull meaning from the information. So we look at how we represent the information to them, and then ways to provide them opportunities that are unique to them to express or demonstrate their knowledge about what they know. And so I think if we keep that in mind too, so now I'm giving us kind of two bigger, higher order frameworks to think about as we look at tools, but I think it really helps to kind of focus us onto what it is that we want to do. And like I said, it's this constantly the mind shift for teachers. And that's, I feel like if I do anything all day, it's constantly reminding people that there are different options. This is all about providing choice for our learners. Yeah, and I think Jackie made a good point, is the idea of, you think about UDL, it perfectly matches the idea of cross-platform or the platform becoming irrelevant. Because again, it's thinking about the higher order ideas here. One of the references that I put in here that I didn't put in last week, and that's why I wanted to make sure I dropped it in this week. I was mad at myself for forgetting it. If you're looking for resources, this is a great tool on the web. It's called the Udl Tech Tool Kit, and maybe some people have used it already. The website is udltechtoolkit.wikispaces.com. Great resource of really broken down into a lot of free and inexpensive tools that you can use to reach students in a whole array of areas. If you look on the left in the picture, you get kind of a sense of what's there. Free text-to-speech free text-to-speech tools, graphic organizers, looking at digital storytelling, literacy skills, writing tools, collaboration tools, math tools. There's just a great amount of resources there. And whenever anybody's looking for a way to incorporate a device into a classroom activity that they're trying to think of, this tends to be one of the first places I send them. So go through here, look through some of the resources there. Maybe it will stir an idea and give you a sense of what you might be able to accomplish and the tools that are out there to do it. So you'll see some things on here. And a lot of the tools on this are nice that they are web-based. And so again, we go back to our idea from last week. If something's web-based, any device I'm sitting in front of that has access to the web can get to that. That's perfect, because then we really get into our idea of platform irrelevant. Doesn't matter, because it's working on a web-enabled device, so we're able to see it. So keep that. That's one of our activities that we'll go to, is exploring that and kind of reporting back. So I'll let you loose on that to get a sense of how that works and tools on there that you would find helpful and why. I think that's great for us to get kind of a sense of what is important to all of us that we're looking for. That's one of our tech activities that we will do this week. So you can find that in the forums as well as on the home page for our course. One of the other sections I wanted to throw in today because I think it's important. I think there's a lot of discussion and a lot of articles and a lot of things being written about the idea of students being too connected to screens and a lot of screen time, and how much screen time is too much screen time. I don't have the answers to that. I don't know. That could be a conversation for another day. But in thinking about that, what I'd rather focus on for a second is thinking about how do we look to incorporate real-world movement, real-world learning with the mobile devices. So are there opportunities for the mobile devices to foster real-world activity? And that's kind of an interesting thing. And I think if we start to see that shift, which we are seeing it a little bit, you are seeing, then you'll see mobile devices used in a much different way, where they are just part of the activity. Perhaps not the driving force, perhaps not the only thing going on in an activity, but part of it and embedded into the activity. And so this is kind of an interesting area, and I'm really excited about this. This is when I think about the next couple purchases I make with money I probably don't have, but I really want to buy things anyway. This will be the area that I'm going to buy things in, because I think this is a really good chance for us to merge the two together. And so I'll give you a couple examples. Maybe other people have some more, and I'll certainly love to hear about those. But these are a couple of the ones that I came up with to kind of share with us. The first one that I'll show is called Osmo. And what this is, it's a tool that allows you to pair the iPad with real-world games and activities. And so the pictures on the screen do a nice job of just kind of demonstrating some of the different ways you can use this. But I think one of the takeaways from every picture up there demonstrating how this Osmo might work in a classroom, one of the key points in every one of those pictures is that there is some manipulative in the environment that the students are working with. They're not working with just the tablet, in this case the iPad, but the iPad is part of the activity, but not the central part of the activity. So on the top left, the student is building a puzzle out of colored pieces, but the device is recognizing where they are and where those pieces are being located and is giving a reinforcement on the screen. On the picture on the right, the student is drawing a picture that's represented on the screen. So there is this back and forth kind of working with the computer, with the tablet, as well as doing some real world activity. And then at the bottom, the student is doing a letter game that's being reinforced on the screen of the iPad. And so we're starting to get a sense of how these tools, this tablet running an app, is starting to interact with things in the environment. And so the skill building is happening with real world manipulatives, but the device is there to support that. Yeah, and I think Jackie says as a good point is that the idea is that the device is there to assist. It's just another tool in the environment, like a pencil, like Jackie says. It's just another thing that's there to support the learning. It is not the thing driving everything. Instead, it's just there to give that student extra, whatever they might need, whether it's the reinforcement of, oh, my puzzle pieces are in the wrong place, or if I'm doing something with letter tiles, it's giving me the heads up that I put the wrong letter there and providing me some support in that sense. So looking at the ways that we can start to do that, and these are the kinds of tools I envision we'll see more of, is these kinds of tools that are tying the tablets that we use to some other activity. And I don't know if anybody's seen Spiro. This really will be the next thing I purchase. I'm mad at myself that I haven't bought one yet. But the Spiro is a little robot ball, or if you see the picture at the bottom of the other one, the picture to the left with the ball and the person holding the little iPhone, that's the Spiro, that's the original one. The picture underneath the text that looks like a little tank treaded little thing, that's called the Ollie. That's another one of theirs, but it's got a different shape to it, but the same kind of idea. What you get with this is that the app loads into your device, whether it's an Android or an iOS, and allows you to control the robot in the environment. So there are games that you can do and little activities that you can work through. The company does a really interesting job in putting together lessons that they call Spark lessons, and Spark stands for the schools, parents, robots, and kids. That's what Spark stands for. But with those lessons they put together, the students are actually working on coding activities. And when they're done with the activity, that is fed into the robot to perform some task. So you're getting that combination of, I'm working with a mobile device, I'm working with some high-tech thing, in this case the robot, but what I'm also doing at the time is I'm learning how to do coding, I'm working as a group, I'm collaborating, I'm sharing, I'm learning from each other. Think of all those higher level skills that you can be working on at the same time in order to use this device. And then at the bottom of the page, just because it's important to have a Star Wars reference in just about anything, this will be our first of two for today. If you're a Star Wars fanatic, like myself, and you can't wait for the new Star Wars to come out, the robot in the Star Wars is actually a kind of life-size version of that Sphero robot. The same company built the device. So when you see that in their advertisements, and I sense as we get closer to when that movie comes out, you'll see a ball robot that's shaped exactly like the one from the movie. But that's the device that you will see. But what's interesting about the Sphero is not only the games that come with it, but here we think about the broader scope of what we can do with this. And this is a school that's local to me here in New Jersey called the A. Harry Moore School. And they've incorporated the Sphero into a lot of classroom activities. This is a school for students with significant physical disabilities. And so for a lot of the students in these classes, they might not be able to physically interact with things in the environment. And so what they're doing is using the mobile devices and the robot to work through activities of learning throughout the day. The two pictures at the top of the screen are showing the students working through math activities. So they've taken numbers and take them to the floor, and someone has to move the robot to the numbers in order to complete the math problem. So we're getting this idea of it's facilitating the learning, it's giving the students a different level of engagement with the activity because now there's these other functions that are going on. They're controlling the robot's moving through and picking the things. Everybody gets a turn to complete an assignment problem. So we get to start seeing that. The other one at the bottom, this is the one I think is just fantastic. They're taking the Sphero robot and dipping it in paint for art activities. So again, for students who are using wheelchairs for mobility who may not be able to complete an art assignment because they might not be able to hold the brush, they might not have the range of motion, there could be any number of reasons why they're not able to do the math activity. They set a large canvas up in the center of the table and they put the robot in paint, drop it on the canvas, and everybody gets a turn to control the robot in a different direction. And they've created some painting, some unique painting. So you start thinking about these ways we can incorporate that in is what makes that really an exciting opportunity for us to use these types of tools that are out there. One other one that I didn't put in here that I was just reading about before we went on today is the idea of using radio-controlled drones, little small aerial drones connected to tablets to do activities in school, mapping the school grounds, looking at different things in the environment and using that to provide the opportunity with a camera for the students to see and report back on different things for science and for that kind of thing. So thinking about how we can pair our mobile devices with these other real-world activities is really exciting. And we have something in our chat box. Fisher-Price makes something like Osmo for younger children. Oh, that's awesome. And there's a link to it, which I'm so tempted to click on right now, but I can't because I'm leading the thing, so I can't. So I'll do it later. But thank you. That's a good share as well. So thinking about how we could incorporate that in. We'll do that as one of our activities, thinking about, and I'm not saying everybody has to run out and get one of those robots right now, but if you want to, go out and run out and get one, that's fine. But don't do it on my account. But instead, think about using that example of what I just showed in those couple slides. How could you incorporate mobile devices into some physical activity so that it becomes a support for that? And so that's one of the activities we'll come up with this week, is thinking about what could I do? Could I incorporate it into an art lesson? How would I do that? What would it look like? Could I incorporate my mobile devices into a science experiment using the cameras and some other apps that maybe help me move through the periodic chart or something like that, or chemical solutions? What can I do with that? So thinking about how we can incorporate that in will be one of our other things for this week. So start getting the mind going a little. All right. There, by the way, is our second Star Wars reference of the day. You're welcome. We'll start this idea of a smackdown. And we're about right exactly where I thought we'd be when we got to this, which is perfect. The idea being, I'll show you some examples, and I have a handful, and they kind of cut across platforms, because I want to make sure we get a sense to see what they are, all different kinds of things. And so I'll share them, how they're used, what platform they work on. At this point, if you have one to share, drop it in the chat box. So think about an app that you might use on a mobile device. Tell us the name of the app, the platform it works on, and how are you using it. Which to me is always the most important thing. What are you doing with it? Those are the parts that I really like to hear. So I'll show you some. We'll move through them. We'll see how we do. This I'll also drop in as a third activity this week in the idea of continuing this learning. So we'll do this through the forum as well. So if you have more ideas you've come up with or ways that people have used mobile devices, drop it in there and we'll share that information as well. So those will be our activities for the week. So we'll start with one. I thought I'd start with one that works on everything. So to give you a sense of what these next handful of slides will look like, it'll have the name of the app on it at the bottom left, typically. I think, unless I changed my convention at some point. Yeah, I think I didn't. Bottom left will be icons of all the platforms these apps work on. So with this first one, this is called Readability. This is a browser extension. So if you're using Chrome, Safari, or Firefox, this will insert itself into your browser. If you're using Android or an iOS device, it's an actual app that you download. But ultimately what it does is it takes any web page you're looking at and allows you to strip out and simplify all of the text on that page. And if there is an app that I use almost constantly for students of all ages, of all abilities, this is one of them. When you think about the idea of sending a student out to a website, and even the picture in the example there, the article is there, but there's also a flashing banner that wants you to invest money somewhere else. There's other things that pop up, and it tends to be distracting for students. So with the Readability, I can click the button to have it simplify the page. All of that information goes away. Now I just have the actual text of that article. What's really nice is I've used this for places where not everybody has access to the internet, but we have different devices in the room, and we can now pull down articles and save them as a file that we can then insert onto other devices. So now I can, in essence, build books that I can drop onto other mobile devices for people to read. And so we start thinking about how we use these. This is a free one, so that we get the sense of this not costing us anything, which is always nice. Mary dropped one in, thank you, called iStudies Pro. So it's a homework planner, information planner. Mary's using it for middle school and high school students. What I like is some of the features that you're giving us there, which is great. Good visuals and framing for the students. So explicit instructions for homework. Really nice. So we have our students who are struggling with the organizational aspect of managing their own school day. Now we can start looking at that. And I think you're right, Mary drops in the idea that you could use this for college students too. I mean, anybody who struggles with organization, that's a perfect tool for somebody like that. Is that, and I see Mary's typing, and maybe she's typing this right now, is it an iOS app? Is it an Android? Is it a website? What is it? And let's just finish typing. But that's a great example of one that we can use. While Mary types, I'll hit the next button, and if she answers up, I'll get that out to everybody. So one of the other, here's one that came from, thank you, Mary, an iPad app, but it may also be Android. That's awesome, great, thank you. So here's our first example of one that I got from last night from the AT chat. So again, there it is. I threw out the question. I'm hosting a webinar with a virtual app Smackdown tomorrow. Feel free to give app ideas and how you use them. And so I got something from Luis Perez, who commented back that he's using Adobe Voice, which is really nice. If you're looking to create engaging materials for students right on the iPad, so Adobe Voice is free and allows you to build materials that you can add pictures and audio to, and then produce a clip, which in essence becomes almost like a movie clip that students can watch. So if we're thinking about the idea of engaging our students, finding a way to give them more than just the text on the screen, this is a great way to do it. And so thinking about the idea. So this is, again, Adobe Voice. This is free, and it's only for the iOS devices. Jackie commented that Adobe Voice is great to be used in mini videos. Yeah, to be used in the flipped classroom. That's right. Jackie and I were just talking about the flipped classroom before, and it's so true. I think a lot of these tools fit nicely into the idea of what we're starting to see a lot of people catch on with, the idea of flipping the classroom, providing instruction prior to the lesson, and you can do that in a video form, in other engaging pieces of material, and then when the students come to the classroom, you have the opportunity to build on the material. So they've learned new information away from class. They come into the class with a shared understanding of new information, and then they build on that and learn from there. So I think it's a really great way to think about it. So definitely. So that's Adobe Voice. I put in a couple note-taking ones because this is a lot of the time people are asking me questions about how to take notes and how students can better take notes. And so for anybody who's familiar with the LiveScribe pen, with the idea of I write on the notebook and the pen records the audio that happens as I'm writing, and the audio becomes synced to the text that I wrote. That way I can go back and listen to any part of the recording at any time. A lot of apps that do that as well. And so you have this thing that where Audio Note itself will work in the Mac and the PC, which is interesting. The PC version just came out. I haven't even played with that yet. But it works as a Mac app, a PC app, and then Android and iOS. So you start talking about the idea of giving support to a student across the range of devices they might have. It doesn't matter what I have. What's nice about that is that app will function the same way. So if you start looking for ways to provide instruction that are universal, it's great to do that on an app that lives in the same format on any device people go to. And so now as I type into this app, the app is recording the information that's being spoken aloud. And then if I want to go back and play that back later, I just simply tap wherever I've written something, whether I've typed it or handwritten it, and the app and the device will play back the audio. So think of it like an audio bookmark. Everything you type or write is audio bookmark to that moment in time. And John commented that it's a good brainstorming tool. Yeah, I agree. So students can think aloud and then draw at the same time, and then there's that connection. I found I love Audio Note or even the LiveScribe pen. I love it for math classes. If you think about math specifically, I go and I take notes in a math class, and sometimes the only thing my notes show are the correct answers to a problem. But I have no idea how I got to that correct answer anymore. So if you're using an app like this or even the LiveScribe pen, as the student's writing it, they're listening to the explanation of how they got to that answer, and it really does tie that information together. And so I think it's a really nice way to do that. Mary commented NoteTaker HD is an annotation app for the iPad that they use for homework, guided notes, and curriculum. I think that's really good, and that idea of organization of material and kind of giving them a structure to how they find that information is great. And Mary also mentioned Pictello, which I think is a great app too. It's an iPad, and it's not available on any other platforms, but it gives you, again, visuals and audio linked together. So you can have this dual sensory support, whether it's for anything. I mean, and Mary even comments the idea of adapted books or other types of materials that your students might have to connect with in class. I think it's a really good way to look at it. Awesome. And then finally, Mary says Note Taker, which I haven't used Note Taker, Mary, so I'm glad to hear that it has those features. The Note Taker HD also has the ability to let the students submit their homework electronically via Dropbox or email, which is great. And then we have Evernote, scan them. Oh, I love these. These are great. We could spend all day just reading the chat box. Or Johan. I haven't had the opportunity to try it. I see a lot of applicability. Yeah, for executive functioning. You're right. So you look at Evernote and scannable ways to get pieces of information in. Evernote, and I said it to you guys in the webinar last week. I showed you Evernote. I almost do that to mock myself. I know I should use it. I know it's a great tool. I just don't use it as much as I should. But it's so powerful to organize your information, all kinds of information, pictures, text, handwriting, whatever it is. Really great tool. If you're a Chrome user, so this is for your people that are in Chromebooks only in school, Audio Note has a similar product. It's not the same company, but if you're thinking about the Audio Note functionality on a Chromebook, look at an app called Mic Note, like Microphone Note. It works exactly the same way. It allows me to type into it while it audio records. And so we have that functionality built in. So if you're in a Chromebook setting only, now you have the opportunity to do those same types of supports. There's another one from last night. Somebody mentioned iCard Sort, which is an iOS app, but it's also a brainstorming tool. And so the idea is you can type words on little color-coded cards and then move them around on the screen of the iPad to start sorting them and brainstorming and organizing your ideas. This is another one. I haven't used this, but I'm going to. I think I'm going to download it. It has a cost. It's $10. I'm not sure if there's a free version of it, but I'm going to try that one because I like the idea of giving the students some brainstorming ideas or ability to do some brainstorming, which is great. There's one from last night, from Twitter, from Limits Not Included. I mentioned Ibooks Author last week, and I mentioned Book Creator, and those two are going to pop up again because I wanted to give you a resource, and I realized I didn't put it on last week, so I want to make sure I did, where the link that's on the slide right now is from John Smith. John is somebody that I follow on Twitter, and he does a great job with student-created digital books and digital storytelling. And so if you're on Twitter and you want to follow John, he's at the iPod Teacher. But he works at a school, and to date, they have created 58 different books that you can download from iTunes into your devices to try. And he uses Ibooks Author for some of them. And the one that I have pictured on the screen right there is the one I tend to show in workshops. I think it's fantastic. It's called Fifth Grade Reflections on Our Year. And it is student created, and each student builds a page with text, video clips, there's whiteboard activities that are inserted into the book, and a really nice way to demonstrate what the students did that year. And so what they did is they worked on it for the entire year, and then at the end, they put out this book so that people could get a sense of, well, here's what we did. Here was the work we did all year. And they did that in Ibooks Author. So again, Ibooks Author is the software that works on the Apple, on the Mac devices, and then the books from Ibooks Author will work on your iPads. Not necessarily all of your iOS devices, just your iPads. And again, John also has some good resources there for Book Creator. And so he has this demonstrations of how you can use your books insert audio into them and video. And then at the end, Book Creator has a really nice feature where you can make the book into a video clip. And so now you can play that video anywhere. You don't have to play it in the app. You can just play it right out on any computer as a video clip, and it will just automatically flip the pages. So really nice, and I wanted to give John a shout out because he does a lot of great work. I saw somebody mention EduCreations. Yeah, Susan did. Another one, fantastic app. The idea with this is it gives you basically a virtual whiteboard space that you can make recordings of for demonstrations and then create little video clips that your students could use. And so what we'll do is I'll show you guys a little video right now of how that works, and we'll get a sense of what EduCreations is, and I'll kind of walk you through an example of it. And what's also nice is that you'll also see with this is one of the other pieces, or one of the other devices that I was going to talk about, the other tools in a second, which is called WeVideo. This video clip, I made a whole series of these video clips for a group in Texas that I was working with. And I made these all on my Chromebook using
this video will
a
focus on
tool
the
called
EduCreation apps
WeVideo.
for the iOS.
And you get a sense of what it allows you to
With this
do.
app,
It allows you to
you can
layer
create
things
your
in.
own
Really nice opportunity
audio-described
for
lessons
video
to share with your
production right on the
students by
device.
importing pictures
So just
from any of the sources you might have, your camera roll, the web, and then simply putting the slides together with the pictures and any supporting text that may go with it, as well as any annotations on the screen, pointers, circles, highlight pieces of information. Once you're finished, click the Done button, save the lesson, and then what the app will ask you is, do you want to make this lesson private or public? Create a lesson. You would then log into the EduCreations website where it would save your lesson, and then the app provides you an opportunity to share this out, whether through a link, through a Twitter or a Facebook post, whatever it might be. You could share this information back out with your students.
You would then log into the EduCreations website where it would save your lesson, and then the app provides you an opportunity to share this out, whether through a link, through a Twitter or a Facebook post, whatever it might be. You can share this information back out with your students.
So what you get with that is the sense that I can go through and walk my students through the steps of a process or share information with them, and then produce these video clips that then can be shared out with them through a link. Really a good, nice opportunity to build some understanding, some deeper understanding, and even, like we said before, the idea of flipping the classroom a little bit and getting that to work for students. Let me get rid of this. Okay, I think I do the right thing, I don't know. Jackie will jump on and help me in a second. Jackie, I think I broke it. There you go, thank you. So as we go through, one of the other comments from last night in the AT chat, and I was so happy somebody brought it up, the idea of app smashing. And if you've never heard that, the idea of using two different apps at the same time to create something. And so this came from Mark. Mark's talking about the idea of using Do Ink, which is up at the top, which is kind of a video production green screen tool, and then filtering that information into a comic strip app called Comic Head. So he's using both tools at the same time. He's creating activities with Do Ink, dropping them in his panels as Comic Head for students for writing. And so you're starting to see how you could smash these together, which is really a very, very cool way to do things. I mentioned the idea of WeVideo. So we think about the idea of building video clips, and so this is one I've been using in a lot of my classrooms who are Chromebook schools now, and they're looking for ways for the students to create. And so this is a free service. It has a pay version also. Oh no, who's talking? Sorry, guys. I'm going to try to mute whoever's talking. Okay, there you go. But what's nice is that with the free video, the students can make a nice video clip. What it does have on it is a watermark through the middle of it. So, you know, but for free, if you're just doing something in class, that's perfect. The version that I made that I showed you on the screen before, I paid into that, so it was a couple dollars a month. I think it's $5 a month, I think, to create your own videos. But a good video creation tool that works on the web also. So it's a web-based tool, so you don't need to be on a Chromebook. You can be in any web browser. Touchcast is another one, and again, we think about these ideas of creating video clips or ways that our students can interact with the materials. This one's interesting. I liken Touchcast to watching something on the news. You know, when you watch something on the news and the news anchor is there, and then the little box pops up above their head, and it has some kind of video clip playing or some piece of information. Touchcast allows you to do that. So you can have a recording of your students, and they can insert pieces of information. What's different about Touchcast, which makes it kind of interesting, is it is not a static video. It's a video that I can click. So if a picture pops up on the screen, so if you look at the pictures on the middle or the one at the bottom, there are pieces on the screen that are little pictures or web pages. If I'm on my device and I click that box becomes the full screen, and the person talking drops to a small box. And so I can go back and forth. You think about the idea of UDL, bringing people into the material and giving them different levels of engagement depending on what they need. If my student is listening to a lesson and needs extra support of some other piece of material, they could click it, bring that up while the lesson's still happening, and then go back to listening to the lesson. So you have that opportunity to kind of flip back and forth. It's actually really very cool. One other one that I threw in there as we kind of get close to the end, I'm watching our time, is this is strictly from a device management part of the app Smackdown here. And a lot of times we have a lot of good ways that as teachers and presenters, we can mirror our iPad screen to another device, whether it's a computer or a projector or whatever, but not as many options to mirror an Android device. And I found the one that I've been using, which actually works really well, is one called MobiZen. And it's an app for your Android device, and then you go to the company's website, and when you log into the website, it gives you a code, a numeric code that you punch into your mobile device, and it then mirrors your mobile device onto your computer screen. So the picture right there that's showing, that's my phone mirrored on the right-hand side, and then on the left is some quick launch buttons that you could use. But I could just show just my phone screen if I wanted to. But now I can mirror my Android device up to a computer that could be connected to a display. So there were not a whole lot of easy ways to do that. And so I like to show that because it does seem to work pretty well. And then I wanted to give you another resource as we wrap up for the day. Last night Mark also shared on the AT chat a Pinterest board that he started. That's a bunch of app resources. And he's been collecting these as we do a bunch of Twitter chats. He's been collecting these resources. So I wanted to give that a quick shout out as a link here, which is pinterest.com/detective1. And tech is T-E-C-H. D-E-T-E-C-H-T-I-V-E 1, Detective 1. And Mark's been compiling these from all of the chats we have. He continues to put those on there. So I see we're right at 12. I thought there were a couple that rolled through. Mary mentioned Quizlet, which is really great. So if you're looking to create flashcards to promote the remembering and the learning of facts and pieces of information, that's a really good one. Yeah, and Deb commented on Chrome and using it in Chrome. Oh, and Chrome Remote Desktop. Thank you, Deb. That is probably one of my favorite tools. If you're working in a Chrome environment, but you need access to things that live on a regular computer, a PC or a Mac, Chrome Remote Desktop will allow you to mirror another computer into your Chromebook. And I use that a lot when I have students that need specialized AT software that doesn't exist in the Chrome world yet. So if my student needs Clicker or something else and they don't have it as a Chrome app, they can use it on a Chromebook by mirroring into another device. So that's awesome. Perfect. Thank you. All right, guys, 12 o'clock. Time to wrap up. I mentioned the activities already as we went through from this week. So just to remind you, go back to the website and get in there, and the forum is there with all the activities as well as the activity pages are there too. So make sure you go and visit them. I thank you for your time. I'm sorry I kept you 2 minutes later. I thank you for your participation today. That was fantastic. I appreciate everything that everybody added in, all the ideas that you guys came up with. If I didn't get to yours, I'm sorry, but I appreciate your participation. I will see you next week. We get together on the 29th at 4 o'clock. And in between, I will see you on the message board and in the forum and in the activities. So thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day.